welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We will give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Scott Buell. Scott is the founder of Drone Legends, a STEM education program that brings a teamwork-oriented curriculum to classrooms, holiday programs, weekend fun, and more through the use of drones. He's also the chairman and CEO of Dynamic Learning Experiences, an edutainment brand company that creates original and engaging learning experiences for students of all ages. You can find Scott on LinkedIn by searching Scott Buell or by going to his website, dronelegends.com. Hello, Scott. It's fantastic having you on the show.
Hi, how are you?
Good. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Scott Buell?
Yeah, that's a great question. Success for me means waking up every morning excited about what you're about to experience for the day. So, we all fall into our ruts, and when I think about what success means, it's having that fire in your belly to say, you pop out of bed before the alarm goes off.
I think that's a great answer. You want to be excited about what you're going to do. You don't want to be dreading it. Scott,
Correct.
you were working as a corporate employee before
Mhm,
starting Drone Legends. What made you interested in drones and then made you end up, leaving your corporate role
mhm.
to start Drone Legends?
Great. That's kind of a two-part question. So I'll start with the easier one. What made me interested in drones? Several years back, probably like 8 years ago now, I was sitting in this office that has a window right there, and I looked out, and it was around the holidays, and there was a kid flying something around outside, and I thought, "Why is he having all the fun? Where's mine?" And so it was a drone, and at the time, drones were very toy or hobby-esque, and I went out and bought this little toy drone and started flying it around, and I got the bug. It was a cold winter, and I was zipping around my house. And I started to actually learn how to navigate this thing, and I have somewhat of an obsessive personality, so I quickly got hooked on this little drone. And then, you know, he's 12, I'm 50 something. I have more money to buy bigger toys than he does, so I went out and bought a big one, and came out and was like, "Aha, who's got the real toy now?" So it escalated quickly, and it just was a hobby. I was that guy out here in my neighborhood that was at the time, it's the drone dude with the guy flying around my son's lacrosse game, things like that. Part 2 of your question was what made me leave my corporate gig and go into drones? It goes back to where we started. What does success look like to you? I woke up about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and realized that and I'm in my mid 50s now, it's been my early 50s, and thought to myself, and it was a weird kind of a moment. It was, I don't like what I do. And I had all the trappings of success. From the outside, I was, lived in a nice big suburban home, drove a nice car, great neighbor, but I was really miserable inside. I was I was low, and it was weird because it kind of crept up on me. And it was, it was listening to everybody else around you your entire life about what does success really look like to them. Well, it means having all the stuff, right, to prove that you made it. Well, I realized that that stuff became a self-imposed prison for me. And and I was just, this isn't where I cannot see that I'm going to be doing what I'm doing for the next, God willing, 50 years of my life. Like, are you kidding me? This? And so my eyes opened up that day, and I decided, you know what? I fly these drones. Now you got to fast forward. When I started with drones, they were very hobby. But several years ago, and today, very much so, drones are $1 billion a year, hundreds of $1 billion a year commercial drone services market out there. They're legit business. They're impacting everything from, if we just watched with the hurricanes down in Florida this past fall, drones were everywhere during surveillance and helping with search and rescue. Verizon literally outfitted drones with cell beacons so that they could raise them because there were no cell towers to help with communications. We deliver medicines around the world. We're helping with infrastructure inspection. So drones are one of the 21st century's fastest growing technologies. So it wasn't a stretch 3 years ago to go, you know what? I'm going to start a drone business. I'm going to get a Part 107 drone operator's license from the FAA. And I'm going to go do real estate marketing because guess what? I'm also kind of creative. So that's what started it. Um, how did I end up in classrooms? That's a much longer story. We could talk about that. But so I just decided that I was done. And I'm very fortunate to have a very understanding wife who said, yeah, you are miserable. Go do something else, but hurry up and figure it out.
Well, and that was something I wanted to touch upon was your wife's reaction of, you're sitting there and you have this moment of realization or moments of small realizations of, "I'm not happy, I don't like doing this, I don't wanna be here."
Mhm.
And you talk about, it was a low point for you because everyone else had brought what they thought success was to the table and
Yeah.
kind of implemented that into your life and your way of thinking. How did you go through that process of saying, "Okay, I'm not gonna wake up with this mindset anymore. I'm gonna wake up with a new mindset." And how did
Mhm.
you get yourself through that? Because that
Yeah.
we're talking mental health there as well, so
Yeah,
it's a
we are.
very
That's wow. Okay. It's a great question. Um, couple of years before that, I I quit drinking. And like I said, I do everything full tilt. And so, again, I was highly functional from the outside. You would have thought, yeah, he's great. Guy's got it all together. But I knew that I wasn't my best me. Something, it was holding me back. It wasn't, and I just saw an interview with Steve O of all people who talked about alcoholism as being the best thing to recover from because when you stop, you realize all the potential within you that had been spent wasting time sitting around having cocktails, whatever it is. And for me, that was a defining moment, and it just kind of happened. Again, it wasn't this big. I didn't stand on a soapbox and say I was going to do it. I just one of the things I got sick and tired of doing it. I was like, I'm not going to do it anymore. The clarity was amazing, and then I started to get into the rhythm of, well, if I feel this great, I can feel better, and then I started to feel invincible, and I started to feel magnitudes better about myself than I had when I was drinking. And that compound effect, day in, day out, the compliments of, hey, you look great. God, you look good. What are you doing? And the mindset shift of, hey, I can do just about anything I want. Truly. Like there was this mindset thing that I was going through that and I was consuming all the content too, right? So I'm listening to Gary V and I'm hearing, Tony Robbins is behind me talking in my head. And so I'm getting all of that stuff and I'm buying into it, right? And I'm getting into it. And I thought, yeah, heck, why not me? And so I was also feeling very empowered. So when, 2 years into that, when I was now realizing that I didn't like what I was doing for a career, I was in a position mentally. I had been training for it for 2 years, if that makes sense. I had been working my mental muscle to to see that there was something beyond where I was, something much better, that I had a potential within me that I hadn't even begun to tap into yet. And so when it was a no-brainer at that point. It was like, well, of course I can do it. Why not? Why not me? Somebody's gonna do it.
and I think that's a key point. Why not you? Why can't you do it? And I think that's an important question for anyone to ask themselves, and a key point you had just brought up there. Also, I love Gary Vee too. I think
Yeah, I'm a big Gary guy, but,
he's genius.
he got me sometimes. I met him at VCon last year. I
Oh,
got to
that's
take a
awesome.
picture with him. Yeah, it was great.
He's someone I do want on the show,
Yeah,
so
he's amazing. That'd be a good grab. Little step up from Scott Buell.
No, you're amazing. Are you kidding?
Come on, Gary, step aside. There you go.
Um, that brings me to what I wanna touch upon next, kind
Mhm.
of intro. into talking about your mindset and how it was a gradual transition. Let's go forward to the 2-year mark. You walk into that classroom that you brought up a little bit ago.
Mhm.
I think that's an amazing story, and I think we should really touch upon it as what led you to walk into a classroom
Yeah.
and talk about drones.
Yeah, so really great question, and here's how it played out. So I'm out here carrying around my drone and doing real estate marketing, and I run into somebody who's listing a house, and we're chatting, we get friendly, we become very friendly, and she says, "Wait, well, I've got my niece, a friend of a friend of a friend, essentially, is a teacher in Camden's Promise Charter School here outside of Philadelphia." And so she said, "Let me introduce you." And so then she invited me in. Long story short, the teacher invited me into her fifth grade class and said, "Sure, come and talk to my kids about drones. Sounds like really interesting." So I had no idea what I was going to do, but I'd spent my life as a as an account executive and a business development director pitching C-suite. So I used to stand in front of a room with a slide deck and a suit and a tie and pitch. So this wasn't that much different. They're actually a tougher crowd, believe it or not. Those little fifth graders, because I walked in and they were like, "Yeah, tell us what you got." And so and then I had something for them, didn't I? I was like, "Well, guess what I have? Drones." And so we started to talk about drones, and it just started to pour out. It was really kind of a natural thing where I was thinking about, hey, and not just drone is like, isn't this a neat toy? But like, do you know that people pay me to fly this thing? Do you understand that there is a legitimate career pathway for you in this world? Whether you want to be a computer programmer and program drones, whether you want to be an operator, whether you want to be an engineer and design the next phase of drone technology. I mean, you think about Mimi Ong and what her team at the NASA's Jet Propulsion Labs did of putting a drone on Mars. There was so many things that I could talk about that I just riffed. And then I flew it. I took a little one and I was like buzzing it around the room, and the kids went nuts. And so that was a defining moment because I walked out of the classroom and the teacher was like, "That was brilliant. Those kids were you had them in the palm of your hand. And by the way, let's go take it every other classroom here at the school." So I ended up being there all day. Uh, left there, I left there physically exhausted with a newfound respect for educators and what they do day in, day out. My hat is off, and it remains off to this day for what they do. They're not paid enough, they don't get enough credit. Don't put me on that soapbox. But I also looked up and I thought, well, that took you 50 years to show me. Like that is exactly what I'm going to do. I don't even it's not a question. I'm going to do that and I'm going to do it better than anybody else. At least in my mind, that's what I told myself. I'm going to make it so that kids, because I that mindset that I have, that inside us lives this unique potential. It's the reason my company's called Drone Legends, because inside every child lives a legend. Inside all of us is this legendary thing. And so I thought, well, I'm going to take that angle, and I'm also going to teach kids that they are legends. So through the magic of drones, I'm going to take that attention. I'm going to be like, "Do you know how great you are? Really? Do you know how great you are? Who's your legend?" And you ask them who their legends are, and they tell you, and you go, "You know what? One day they were just like you." That goes back to the why not you? Why not you? They were just kids once.
And I think that's really important is what you talked about in that story is your self-empowerment. You walked in that day not knowing exactly what you were gonna do and leaving and going, "Why like, it took me this long to do it. I'm
Mhm.
here. I'm gonna go full speed ahead."
Yeah.
But in that process, you gave and you continue to give self-empowerment through not just your company name, but through what you do, and you're showing kids of all ages that they are legends no matter what age, what they're doing, and they have the power to thrive in and excel in what they want to do. And how, through naming your company and having those conversations with kids, how do you try to show them that they can be self-empowered
Mhm.
and put that mindset in their head?
So It's kind of twofold. So the whole idea of being part of our legendary community, right? So we talk about being legendary a lot in our programs. The program, the STEM program that we do, science, technology, engineering, and math with drones, is also problem based. So we put students in challenging situations insofar as academically challenging situations, right? Solve this problem, work together, overcome obstacles, right? Lean into the challenge. Don't shy away from it. Failing is important. You're going to fail. We need to teach kids that we've taught kids for far too long that failing is bad, when in fact we should teach kids that failing often, failing frequently, failing forward is good, because that's where we learn, right? When an infant's learning, a toddler's learning to walk, they fall a lot. That's not failing, it's falling. It's the only way you learn how to walk. Well, we aren't doing a good job of teaching people how to walk. And so that was one of the things we had to include in our curriculum is understand that that life is about iteration and trial and error. And you should do things that make you a little nervous, right? You should fear that. You should step into that because all the good stuff's on the other side of that. I'm living proof of that.
So you talk about your curriculum, and let's dive into that a little more. So you started creating curriculums to make interacting with drones a fun way for individuals to learn STEM and be
Mhm.
engaged with content. How do you come up with the content and pairing of the two, the drones and the STEM programs? And what is that process for you and your team like to create that curriculum and bring it to schools and different individuals?
It starts with the educators, and I'm very fortunate to have a good team. So, I'm just one person. I have interesting ideas, sometimes too many. And but you need a team of really great talented people, and I have that. I'm very fortunate that I've got very good talented people that can help you realize sometimes my very lofty visions, right? And so but you have to then bring that down to reality and you have to think about, okay, so if our mission is X, Y, Z, what are we doing to enable that? So one of our core tenets is our is empowering educators, right? I mean, we can't if it were just Scott Buell running Drone Legends, that's great if it were just here in South Jersey, right? So sure, we can create a little atomic network of legends, but what about creating legends all over the world, right? How do we do that? Well, you've got to create programs that are scalable and useful and valuable. And so, you know, I guess coming out of years and years of customer service, being that account executive, being the liaison between clients and my teams, I'm very sensitive to customer support and really stepping in the shoes of your customer, in this case, the educators, because truly, even though the students are kind of our low quote unquote end user, we have to make sure that the educators are empowered to run these programs so that the students go home and they say, I love being a drone legend. Like, I am so into this thing. This is great because their experience is great. Then you've also got to look at the curriculum. You've got to break it down to say, okay, how is this going to be used in a classroom, in a school? So work through the scenarios and do the heavy lifting for the customer. I use this expression a lot when I'm talking to potential customers. I say, "Look, we've stepped in all the bear traps so that you don't have to, right? And even if you end up in one, we want to make sure that you're empowered to get yourself out of it quickly." So I think that's key. Just know your audience, understand what your vision and your mission is, and then take proactive measures and get the right people in the right places. So to use a Jim Collins expression, get the right people on the right bus and heading in the right direction.
And I think that is a key point is look at it from the perspective of your customers, not just the end users, because you can have different customers throughout the
Mhm.
line. And that's
Yeah.
really important to realize that there's not just one customer segment, there can be many. And that's a pure example of it. And I always say, when someone brings an idea to me or, wants my opinion on something, I always ask the whys.
Yeah.
the 5 whys. I just keep asking it, "Well, why?"
Yeah.
And I try to bring up every possible scenario of why that won't work. And I remember in college, we were doing a startup company competition, and my team actually beat out, Harvard MBA individuals, and we ended up winning the competition. But the whole time, it was a 72-hour competition. You had to create a business idea and basically implement it in 72 hours.
Wow.
And yeah, and we
What'd you
sat up
create?
we sat up and we were strategizing, talking to potential customers, this and that. And every time someone on my team would say something, I'm like, "Okay, but why? And what happens when, this happens? How are we gonna
Yeah.
fix it?" And they used to always say to me, "Why are you trying to, like, ruin the idea?" I said, "I'm not trying to ruin your idea. I'm trying to make sure we think of everything."
That's yeah. We play the so what game.
Mhm.
So it does X, Y, and Z. So what? Well, because so what? If you ask so what enough times, you'll peel back and you'll get to the heart of what was really important. I think it's not much different than the why, right? So why is that important, or why should that make sense to somebody, or why are we even doing this in the first place, right? Like why? Why bother?
And I think that's a key point. The Whatever game it is, however you approach it with your team, in your personal life, even having conversation with your friends, those are important questions to ask to peel back the layers and get to
Yeah,
the root cause. When you're having a discussion about what to do in any situation or even debating with someone, understand their perspective, but peel back those layers. I
yeah.
want to talk about something with you.
All right.
You had said in, your previous statements talking about the teachers, but also not just a South Jersey company, but really being able to expand your brand
Mhm.
and the company and your initiative and what you're trying to do. So you're from Marlton, New Jersey. That's where the company was founded and based out of. But you've
Correct.
grown and you've really made it on that bigger scale and international. How did you take it and grow it as well as, different states have different
Mhm.
curriculums and levels of
Yeah,
education, different countries look at things differently. How do
yeah.
you manage that as you're trying to implement a new idea?
So I think there's a couple parts to that. So how did we grow it? Let's just take the nuances of states and international out of it for a minute. Um, just a desire to scale and understanding let me think, let me rephrase that. It goes back to creating a system, right? Understanding that that was the goal, right? So it wasn't just to host a local drone club. The goal was to scale big, to do something spectacular and kind of audacious, right? And so, with that in mind, then, well, we talked about putting the right people on the bus. So they help, right? So, what kind of program are you going to run that's going to be quote unquote universally? The more people you bring, the more value to, the bigger you can scale, right? So, we wanted to create a system that anybody could bring into their schools. Now, it's designed primarily as an after school enrichment program. It does have a lot of academic alignment in terms of NGSS and ISTE and Common Core and so on. But we're able to map those standards to state standards if we need to. But I think it just goes back to creating a system that doesn't take anything for granted, and understanding that, like, hey, assume a zero-based knowledge and put something together that is turnkey so that Olivia, who knows nothing about drones or anything like that, could open this and get going and feel really good about it. And we get those kinds of emails and phone calls. It's really amazing. We'll get calls from customers who are self-proclaimed technophobes, and they'll go, "This is amazing. I'm running this. Like I'm running this. I'm doing drones in my school." And in elementary school, fifth grade, sixth grade. I mean, we're not talking these monster drones. We're talking little indoor. designed for the classroom drone, but they're doing it. And that's the point. So I think the answer to your question is think with scale in mind. You have to understand what it is you're trying to do and then map a plan to get there. For me, it was always about scalability. If I'm the one doing it, we can't scale. So you got to take yourself out of the equation. If Scott Buell is the product, then that's a consulting gig, and you have only so many hours in a day. So that was my goal from the beginning, is to create something that was truly turnkey that we could roll out. And and also, look, I've got a thing here on my wall. It's not about who's first, it's about who does it best. And the best is the business that delivers the most value to the consumer. So ask yourself, how can I make the best product possible? How can I keep improving? And I look at that every day because that's its value. What's the value? How are you bringing the most value to the most people? And how do you continuously improve? If you have that always at the forefront, then you'll be fine. You should, as long as you've got a good idea and you're also able to execute. I mean, good ideas are like, you got to be able to execute.
And I think you brought up 2 key points here. Always think about the value you're going to provide, as well as, you know, how can you continue to grow? How can you take it to that level? If you put your goal as one thing and then you never change it, well, what happens once you reach it? So
Yeah.
I think that's a really key point. How do you continuously change your goals and pivot them?
hmm I think, wow, it's funny. Matthew McConaughey had in one of his speeches talked about chasing his 10-year hero, right? Who's your
Mhm.
hero? Me 10 years from now. And me 10 years from now, me 10 years from now. So I've got, I'm one of these guys. Oh yeah, yeah. You see, I'm going to go down a weird path now. So I live in this, so every morning I fill pages and pages and pages and pages of this. And these 20, 30, 40 books by now probably are filled with my dreams, aspirations, goals, visions of where I'm going to be. Uh, life is life is change, right? The only thing constant in life is change. If you don't innovate or die, right? Well, it's the same thing. And you got to be careful because you can't chase every shiny object either. So there's this balance of pacing it. It's interesting. Life is very, very short, yet really long, right? So it's a precious thing. You're here for a sliver of time when you think about the grand scheme of it. But yet you have time,
Mhm.
but you've got to live with like that sense of impending end in mind. And so you want to pace it, practice patience, execute, but there should always be this sense of urgency inside your belly. I know for me there is. Like I wake up before the birds are up and I'm like, I gotta get at it. I gotta get at it. Right. And I'm not promoting hustle culture. I'm promoting this this idea that there's only so much time, and we tend to waste a lot of it if you think about your day. And you should have this almost this dread. This is going to sound morbid, but we're going we're going to die, right? What's the one thing we all have in common? We're going to be gone one day. We're not going to be here. I heard somebody say, "What do you think it's like when you die?" And they said, "Well, what was it like before you were born?" And so if you live in that mindset, you should have this sense of urgency, almost the sense of like dread of like, I can't waste time. Like, and I need to do in my time, what am I going to do? And what am I going to this is a gift. So what am I going to do with that gift? And I can go off on tangents of how I feel about that, but that's what drives me. Right? Like that's what I get sick to my stomach sometimes with that drive of what am I doing that's important? What am I doing that's big and meaningful? Because, you know, why the heck not? Why not? I mean, it makes me sometimes I get frustrated when I watch people that just want to sit around and binge watch Netflix and this show. They're like, "Did you see such and such?" I'm like, "I haven't seen such and such in like 5 years." Like, no, I haven't seen such and such. That's a waste of time, right? I don't have time for that. And I don't mean to say like I'm better than everybody else. I'm not. It's me. I can't rest and sit comfortably on a sofa binge watching a show. The guilt will eat me up inside. Now I can do it every now and then. I can every now and then kick back and say, "Look, I'm gonna chill for a little bit," but not often.
Well, and I think it's also your mentality of once you get an idea in your head, you kinda wanna work through that, and sitting there watching shows, you're probably sitting there going, "Okay, but when is it gonna be over so I can figure this out?"
It's you know what it is? I love the creative process. Like, I really love the products that we build and grow. I think it's super cool to have an idea and then see it manifested in reality. That is the coolest thing in the world. I love the creative process of creating brands and products and services and then watching people use them with smiles on their faces. I mean, what could be more fulfilling than that? Is having this little spark, this idea in your head, and then putting it out here, and then people actually telling you that this is awesome and I love it and thank you for making it. Wow, what could be cooler than that? For me, nothing. Absolutely nothing other than my wife and my son. But beyond that, what is cooler than that?
I have a question for you. Not that I haven't had a lot of questions today,
That's fine.
but
Sure. That's what we're here
you just
for.
you just brought up your son. How has your son looked at drones and STEM and seeing what you've done?
Oh, he doesn't go near them. You know what? He doesn't. He's a teenager. He's got his own life. And you know he knows that this is here, and if he's interested, there's potentially an opportunity for him here. It's not a given. He's got to earn it. But my son's very independent, and he's his own person, and I really like that about him. And he's finding his way. Uh, they're very supportive. They think I'm a maniac, which is a good thing. I'm glad he does. But yeah, he's not really now his friends think what I do is cool. But for him, it's just like, yeah, that's just my dad with his drums. So he's
Yeah.
not he's 17 and every bit of 17. So
But I think that's a key point that you had brought up about how your son looks at drones, as well as the possibility if he decides that is something he wants to do. What you said is it's not given to him. If
right. Oh
he
no.
wants yeah, if he wants to work for it. And I think that's key for families own businesses, you have to still put in the work. And I think it's also important for others to realize sometimes that just because, for example, your son, if he goes down that path, he's
Mhm.
still working for it. It doesn't mean it's handed to him. And
He's
I think that's
working
a
for it.
great
Yeah, sorry. I'll tell you what I think is even cooler is that he's watched me through this journey. And And we're very open. I don't hide a thing from my son. I mean, my wife, we're just this little tiny three musketeer kind of family, and my son's an only child, and we've never babied him. He's super mature for his age. I mean, he's still a teenager with like a half formed frontal lobe, but he's also extremely mature. It's because we talk to him about finances. We talk to him about risk taking. We talk to him about happiness and what that really means. And stuff doesn't equate to happiness, that happiness is truly, like I said in the beginning of this interview, is waking up happy. Like, wow, I like today. Today's going to be another great day. There's always going to be challenges, but he sees that, he hears it, and it's really funny because sometimes we're like, all right, dad, I've heard enough of that kind of Gary V garbage. But then he'll be talking to us and he'll say something. And my wife and I'll crack up. We're like, "It's sinking in." Like, he's hearing it, he's absorbing it because he's living it and he sees that his father has gone down this path and that we've succeeded. And I'm very lucky that I've succeeded in my first venture outside of the corporate world. Most people don't, and we're never out of the woods, right? I mean, I say succeeded. I'm happy. 3 years ago, I was happy to pay my bills, right? Like today, yeah, we're doing well. It's magical. I pinch myself every morning, but we're never out of the water. We're never out of the woods, and we want to do better and better and better and create new programs that are capitalizing on the momentum that we've got. We've got tremendous momentum behind us right now.
And I think that's a key point is capitalizing on the momentum you have and keep going. It's about that push. How do you continue to keep that same momentum
Mhm.
every day as you're trying to grow?
Because I this is a great question. So when I was young, I never had what I call my lighthouse, my beacon. And I do now, right? So some days I'm exhausted. I mean, I've been up since 4 a.m. today and I've been on Zooms literally, I think, since 8 o'clock this morning. Um, and I'm frazzled, right? Like truthfully, I'm fried. I'm fried, but I've got till 10 o'clock tonight to keep going. Um, but there's that drive in me. I talked about it, that burning feeling of you have to do this. Like this isn't a kind of should have, this is a must. Because I know where I want to go. I see it. I've lived it. I've written about it. Right. So when you have that, which I didn't have younger, and so it's easy to get cast around. If you set sail with no lighthouse off in the distance, you're going to get blown around in life. Life's going to blow you all over the place. It's a really chaotic thing, is life, right? But if you have that thing off in the distance, you can always course correct and you still know where you're going. But if you don't know where you're going, that's a really dangerous place to be in life. If you let life happen to you and not the other way around, yeah, you might get lucky. You might not wash up on the rocks. You might land on a nice soft beach. But the odds of that happening, why risk it? So I think you ask me, like, what keeps you going? What gets you going every single day? Because I know where I'm going. Like I can see it and I like it. I want to get there. Not because I'm looking for riches and I need to have all the money in the world, but because it's the right thing to do with my life. Like I feel like I wrote this morning. It's interesting to think this. I feel like I'm doing exactly what I was created to do. And that's a really cool place to be. And it's a fortunate place to be because I don't think a lot of people feel that way. But when I think about like so I didn't mean to even make that sound like I was bitching about my day. Because and if I ever catch myself doing that, I have to remind myself, yeah, but you're busy. 3 years ago, I wish I was busy when I first started out. So to be this busy means that it's happening. We're busy. We're doing things. I'm talking to people. We're creating strategic alliances, and I'm talking to really interesting partners and potential customers and feedback from customers, and my team. I spend a lot of time with my team, and so when I feel tired and I feel dragged, I go, you got that. Keep going, man. You sleep tonight. And I will look. I'm all about the half an hour nap. No more. No more than that.
I'm
Half an
all
hour
about
power nap.
that half an
I'm
hour
all
nap
about
too.
a. I'm all about a kick my leg up on here and put a timer on for half an hour and just close my eyes. But then I get up and I'm good for another. Ow. It's good. You need that little recharge, right?
Mm, yeah, for sure. You keep mentioning you know where you wanna go. You didn't
Mhm.
have that path earlier, but now you're in a spot where you have your passion, you know what you wanna be doing, you know where you wanna go. So where do you wanna go?
All right. Yeah. So you know, I want to. I want to be able to see Drone Legends, the brand, and our brands that we're creating in dynamic learning experiences. I like when I see kids engaging and interacting with our brand. I I come out of I was born in, I was born in the 60s and raised in the 70s, and I was part of that whole Star Wars era, and I was a big Kiss freak. I was 10-year-old, like obsessed with them. But because they were larger than life. These things were things that I looked up to, and I loved. I was obsessed with these brands and these things. And I want our brands to have that same level of, I want people to I want kids to love being a part of this, right? I want them to walk into like a Walmart or an Amazon and see Drone Legends branded products and things like that. Entertaining people, leaving a legacy, and then listen, financial freedom as well. Not because I want to be rich, but because I want the flexibility to live life on my terms, to do more great things. So, right when we think about what you do in life, having that financial freedom frees me up to do other cool things and money to do it with and bring other neat things to people and maybe get into like a philanthropy of some sort and think about what you can do there. I am a firm so that's where I see, what do I see? I see us being very successful. I see dynamic learning experiences having multiple, kind of what we call these edutainment brands. Today it's in drones, but tomorrow it could be in something else, right? Where are we headed? And so that was the idea behind DLE was that, yeah, Drone Legends is a great brand and we're doing very well there, but there's going to be other opportunities 5, 10 years down the road. Uh, so, having it comes back to fulfilling your unique potential. Knowing in my heart when I'm laying there on my deathbed that I did everything that I tried to do, that I took risks, that I wasn't scared of living life, and I made a difference in other people's lives. I impacted people. I left my legacy, right? We're here for a little bit of time. Think of all the billions of people that have come and gone on this planet. Very few people leave a mark, right? I mean, we forget about people, even famous people. They die, they move on, and we quickly forget. And and I'm not an egomaniac that I want people to remember me forever. It's just it feels like you've got a God-given gift here, and to not try to push it to the nth degree is almost a sin. And I don't mean that in the literal sense of that, but I mean it just seems wrong. And so where I want to be is I want to be laying there when I'm finally done going, you did good. You actually did something really great. Good for you. Now you can go and you've left a legacy behind you.
And I think that's a great mindset to have in the process as well. Is what do you want your legacy to be? And are you doing it? And I think as long as you have that mindset and that outlook of, am I filling my needs, but also what am I doing to leave that value, that legacy? And what does that look like to me? And I think that's really key that you brought up is what, when you're laying on your deathbed, what does that value that you've left behind look like? And if you've done it, that's a blessing. It's a great moment. I wanna touch upon that a little bit more. So we
Okay.
talked about your curriculums. What in your curriculums and during that experience do you hope the students get? And not just from, the physical content with the drones and everything else, but if there was something you want the students to take away at home or while they're at school doing this, whatever environment they're in, what do you want them to take away from these programs that they might have not had as a mindset before?
I think it's just what we just said is, when you're young, especially when you're in that elementary school, life seems you're at the whim of life. You really are. Um, but you dream. There's a special element to it to childhood, right? We believe in Santa Claus. We believe in things like that. We can dream big. I can pretend to be the king or queen of the castle, and what happens as we grow up is that gets kind of worked out of us, right? Stop your dreaming. you're dreaming, be real. Everybody tells you to get real and grow up and be real. And we leave that ability to dream behind us. And I think that's sad because the dreamers are the ones that change the world, right? Um, you know, but too many people fall into a rut of go to high school, get out, go to college, find a job, work at the job, die. And we so I when you ask me what do I hope? I hope that, I was a really troubled kid growing up. I had a lot of issues and I was at a young age and I was sent away when I was about 14 years old to a character education school. And it's why I do what I do, right? So I wouldn't be here talking to you had I not gone there. And I was that little guy in the back of the room that was just angry and didn't want to like couldn't stand school, kicked out of like elementary school, went to like what two different high schools and was just that bad kid for all kinds of different reasons that aren't really that important. The reality so all there's a lot of kids like that, right? So we have programs running in schools all around the country and many of them are in, kind of areas that are these students struggle at home. They've got interesting home lives, kind of similar to what I was dealing with. And so, those are the kids that I want them to see the magic, right? I want them to I want to bring them in to this world that does two things. Tells them they're worthy. Tells them they have special abilities, that they're special too. It doesn't matter. Your past does not define your future. And so that's the legend part. But then there's this whole STEM side of things. And I'll give you an example. There was this little boy, Mario, and Mario reminded me of me. Now, I wasn't the one teaching Mario. I've heard this through one of the instructors that work with us. And Mario went through one of our missions one day and was working in computer programming. And I think something clicked where he saw the analog between what he was doing here and the video games that he played at home that he was so into. And he told the instructor at the end, he goes, you know what? I think I want to be a video game programmer. Did Mario just find his why? Okay, well, we get lots of those little Marios, right? And so that's great. So I want students to be impacted by this program so that they feel there's two parts of it, right? There's the STEM is one part, but you've got to have a mindset of success that you can achieve great things. And maybe a STEM pathway is one of those ways that you're going to achieve great things. Maybe you want to be the next, an engineer that's taken humanity to Mars. Well, that's an engineering, kind of design entrepreneur pathway, but you got to have the right mindset. You can't be afraid to fail. You've got to believe that in you lives a legend, that you can be a legend. And so if you have that coupled with the exposure to some of this technology, that can be a powerful combination, right? Real powerful combination. So that's what we're trying to do here.
And I think there were many key points in that of trying to help others find their why. And when they have that moment of, this is my why, this is what I want to do, it's not just a great feeling for them and them feeling like they have their purpose, but it's showing that you're impacting others. And then they're going to go on, and whether it's immediate fulfillment of, hey guys, check out Drone Legends, like you got to be a drone legend,
Right.
or it's 10, 20 years from now and them impacting others through
Hmm.
their journey, I think is really great. I think another key point you had brought up there is figuring out what, in you know that you're a legend and helping everyone understand that they're a legend. So, Scott, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect?
Yeah, great. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just Google me or LinkedIn Scott Buell. You can just Google Drone Legends and see all the great things that we're doing out there. You can hit me up on hit me up on the website. You can hit me up at Scott at dronelegends.com. That's really simple. I'll give you my email address, Scott at dronelegends.com. Yeah, and I love this. This has been great. you tapped into a nerve here if you can't tell, because I could talk about this stuff for hours. I mean, this hour just flew by, so
Well, and you were a great guest to have. I think this is gonna be amazing for our listeners to listen to. A few key takeaways from today's conversation are: ask yourself if I am doing the best I can, and what can I do to do better every day? And life is about trial and error. You have to fail. Once you fail, you learn from your mistakes and you'll do better, and
Mhm,
that will lead to your best success, as well as step in the shoes of your consumer. I think that's really important. Understand their perspective, what they want to get out of your product, and
mhm,
also understand, like Scott said, there can be many different consumers, and you have to look at all of the perspectives to really understand the value your product or service can give, and
mhm,
think about your scalability. I think scalability is really important to grow in your personal life or professionally and be able to pivot, like Scott said, in different avenues. Drone Legends is amazing now, but his scalability has brought it to national, international levels, as well as he can bring those concepts and those curriculums into different aspects of learning if he
yeah.
wanted to down the road. This was a great conversation with our top-notch guest, Scott Buell. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.